welcome to another It's Not About Me podcast. My name is Greg Valoria, aka Social Greg on Twitter with.
Tripp Braden from Empowering Serving Leaders at trippbraden at twitter.com.
How you doing, man? You
Good.
having a
How are
good week?
you? Good
Good
week.
week? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a good week. A lot of things happening, but we're gonna
I was going
let's
to say,
see. We're going to talk about this week is kind of you kind of went over the 7 questions last time in the last episode, and it's really around developing kind of like your donor list, right? Kind of questions to ask yourself about the Trip Braden 100, or the donor list that you have that has generated 100. And so again, this podcast is really to help new nonprofits, budding social entrepreneurs, or even people who are looking to get into development and or new to development in a social enterprise or a nonprofit. So, uh, let's talk about as we're developing this list and now tracking people. Trip, can you talk about like what's the why and why are we even trying to find out more about these people? And is that the point of this?
sure. Certainly, I think part of what we're trying to do here, Greg, and is talk specifically about how do we make sure we don't lose anybody, right? So we have this list. How do you make sure you have it, and how do you automate some of these processes? So the whole idea is what we want to be able to do is we want to connect with the people we're talking about. And sometimes the best way to do that is first to watch them a little bit. And the best way to do that is using social media today. I mean, I think anyone in this business would be just shocked about the kind of information we can gather from 2 or 3 social platforms and really better understand our donors and our community. So, I mean, there's some really great things we're going to share here tonight to make it easy for you to find these people on a regular basis and to reach out to them when you want to with your message. So that's the whole idea tonight, is to give you a couple of ideas on how we look at this stuff. So when we look at it, you can say, okay, here's something I have. Now I know how I can use this.
For people that are just kind of like, I don't know this guy, how do I find out more about this? Where's the first place you would go, Trip?
I probably would start with Twitter, because I think it's a very good place to start from the point of view that it gives you a lot of information. It's easily obtainable. It's also, the other part of this is it can allow you to build lists if you want to as well. So part of what we're talking about is basically having this ability to access. As we get more into it, we're going to be able to do some other things with this. But at the first, we want to just find a person to make sure we have a good opportunity to know who they are. And also because that way you can reach out to them and they will follow you back. So a lot of nonprofits have a lot of followers on Twitter, and they help really evangelize the message you're trying to share across the community. So that's the other advantage of what we're going to show you, is once you have these things set up, you have a clear communications channel at very low cost. So
Yeah, that's true. I guess, I do the same thing. I guess I'm on social media first, and I use Google search or maybe the website mining to kind of validate some things, So, that's a very good, that's a
what do
very good
you
approach.
do first? Would you go Twitter first, or would you go to Google and see where people are?
You know, I, I think since I'm on the Twitter platform a lot for the link sharing part, I get to know people a little bit more. I probably start there and then on their profiles, the website. So that's how I kind of go out, as opposed to starting on Google search. Like, I think what we were talking offline earlier is that like, what if you have you find 10 John Smiths on Twitter, and they're the ED or they're one of the sponsors you need to reach out to, either of IBM or other companies, head of corporate giving or something like that. I would then have to go through maybe LinkedIn, Google search, and some other places to go. But I use social media first. I mean, I like that approach you have, actually.
Well, plus it allows you to be sociable. I mean, one of the things you want to do is this is an opportunity to really accelerate your adoption process so you can better understand what they're doing and some of their own interests so that you can see what else they're doing. The other thing about that's nice about starting with Twitter is if you find a certain group of people, like when I lived in Columbus when I was in a major city, you could literally go in and look at another nonprofit with a very similar mission and vision of what they're trying to accomplish and look at their list on Twitter and see some people you might not have even thought of before and follow them. So, I mean, you literally are 2 clicks away from being able to have another 50 or 100 people with similar interests to what you have to say. And specifically, it's all available through Twitter. So it's kind of fantastic when you look at it from that point of view. So,
Yeah, we'll go into the other platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn, but what I find and I agree with you, what's very difficult about, at least for Facebook, is that you got to be very specific, and it's not we'll talk about this when you're looking for a specific person. I think it's really difficult on Facebook, which it's supposed to be. It's private. But I think where Facebook could help you is in the organization and the messaging they're using in their organization. So maybe when you meet the person, just like in an interview, you know a little bit more about their organization and what they're doing on social media. So anyway, let's start by taking us through one of your favorite platforms, LinkedIn, right?
Let's do that. We'll start with LinkedIn. And here we are on LinkedIn. Okay. Now you can see one of my favorite clients, obviously very involved with this month with Pride Month. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to see how our clients respond to certain kinds of events. Gives us a lot of opportunity to see into the world that they're in now. You can see that today I have 150 connections at LinkedIn on IBM. You see here, I'll
Hmm.
point things on it and you can see it. You can see there's 509,000 people on LinkedIn that are IBM employees. So now you can start to see how the power of this kind of thing works, right? So this is just a great opportunity, especially if you're looking at a person or their company to be a donor or a partner. This is a great way to do it. Now what would we do if we wanted to find somebody? So we're going to do something a little crazy here, and I'm going to just go in and type in a name, and I'll type somebody's name that I know myself, and this will make it less easier for us not to have to worry about anybody saying what is going on. Now you should see this come up in a second, and it's not coming up. I'm not really a person. Let's try another name.
Yeah, VI,
As you can see how fast it comes up for you. It's very nice to be able to do this.
VILO. All right,
V
yeah.
A
VI.
V I. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Let me
It's
think
all right. I'm gonna
of
edit
somebody
this.
else. Okay. So here we go. There. We can now we finally come up. You can see. Okay. Here we are. Now we can see Greg. Okay. Now let's go through this together. Now what's nice about this is you can see about Greg. You can see what he does. Right. You have this ability to look at their background and say, okay, community affairs and marketing director at Japan Center. You can look at that. You can see who you share. So, we have that 100 people. Some of them are going to share connections. So if we click on this, now this is what's great about this platform. You can click here, and literally these are the people we have in common, starting with Taffy. So now you have this ability to start to see a community emerging from what you're looking at on LinkedIn, right? So now you have this ability to do this. So that's what's kind of nice about it. So you can go there. If you choose to, you can go in and follow this person. So you see how I have him followed, obviously, because we work together on a lot of projects, or you can unfollow him. But the nice thing is it's one click. You're there, you've got him, that person is in your list, and you're going to see whatever comes up from Greg during the process of what he does. Now, what kind of stuff might come up for you? Well, he's got a new Media Works company, Monk's Media Works. There it is, right? And we got this opportunity to look into them and see what they're featuring. Okay, so now we know a little bit more about that person even more. What have they featured recently? They also have the ability to go in and see about their education. You can see a lot about these people very quickly. And the other thing is, especially if you're doing a local nonprofit or startup, you can also find resources. Like he went to the University of San Francisco. Now let's just click through and say, well, let's see how often he's there. What does that group provide us if we're out in San Francisco?
Mm, nice.
Oh, there is 3,700 employees from University of San Francisco there. There are over 89,000 people in Greg's network. Now, the good news is we have access to many of them once we're connected on LinkedIn. So you can start to see how all this information presents itself. Very easy to look at, very clean.
And this works especially if you don't know someone, because you'll see how many degrees of separation there are between that person and you, right?
Well, why don't you talk, how would you use this? Because you and I have two different ways of looking at this. How do you use LinkedIn when you're doing it for some of the things you do?
Similar to any kind of search, which is like job search. You know, I tend to try to find the person that I'm maybe going to have a meeting with. So let's say in your list of 100, it's going to be, some person that's at corporate giving at IBM, let's say. And I know the person, but but I don't really know the person, right? I'm not connected to them. But what it'll show is that how many degrees of freedom or separation are between you and that person. And I think LinkedIn only goes down to three degrees of separation, right? And limits you along the way, right? So 3 degrees, I think you don't have the ability to message the person directly. Actually, one or two allow you to. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. But in this first iteration, I think I'd just be looking for, you know, their background. If I'm going to meet them in another week and do a pitch, what is their background? Is there something commonality between us? Is there something that we could have a discussion with, or just a off-topic discussion about something? So I think that's what I use it for. Is prior to a meeting, just getting a feel for who this person is, and how they look at it. And I'm more of a marketing person, and Tripp, you're more of a salesperson. So I think why don't you go over how you use it?
Sure. When I start to do is I look for patterns, right? So part of this whole idea is, okay, what do I see in this particular person when I'm starting to look at what they do? For example, what do I know about you that I didn't know before? What else can I reach out to you for? For example, it tells you I'm open to volunteering. I'm pro bono consulting. I'm able to do that. Now I can say that could be my opening line to the person when I talk to them, is I understand you're open to pro bono consulting work. Or I can say, look, I see you're open to volunteering. Now I know an awful lot more about you, and I can message you right from here. So now I have this ability to immediately, if I want to talk to you, I can reach out to you right then and there. Don't have to do a lot of other things. Once we have them in the network, we can directly message. This is how quick it is, right?
Right.
We have a back and forth. It's right there. So, and what's nice about LinkedIn is that it actually saves it. So every conversation you have through LinkedIn in a conversation, you can go back and see how your conversations go. So if you go to some of my conversations with some of the people I've known for many, many years, you might have 30 or 40 conversations there that are very easy, quick to read before I make the call to that person to reacquaint myself with that person. So it kind of makes it's kind of like you used to have the 4x6 cards, right? These are your electronic 4x6 cards, except they're better because you can read it and they don't
Mm.
fade over time. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. The other kind of thing I'm looking for a lot of times is what you're interested in. What other volunteer experiences do you have? You know, in your case, you have a number of other kinds of volunteer. So we have a person here, because part of it is to find the critical early people who are going to be very supportive of helping you with what you need to accomplish. And then obviously, finally, we can talk about recommendations, and we can also look at into interest. So we know an awful lot about you, a lot more than I could have known by going and spending hours and hours and trying to find things on Google. This is all in one stop. So does
Right.
that make a lot of sense to you from the point of view of what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think this is good. I mean, just like, I looked at LinkedIn as the professional Facebook almost, right? It has very similar features. The messaging and the history of the messaging in Facebook is very similar to what you see in LinkedIn. And but the other thing you don't see on LinkedIn is just the depth of information from a business standpoint that you don't get with Facebook. So um, but it's interesting. A lot of my Japanese colleagues use Facebook as part of their business, almost like LinkedIn. So it's very interesting. So a lot of them would connect with me from a business standpoint on Facebook, as opposed to LinkedIn. So it's interesting, the different cultures and how they view certain social media platforms. But dealing with here in the United States, I think it's more traditional to have LinkedIn as your business network as opposed to Facebook.
Well, I think part of it's also how the culture is. You want to deal with people you trust. So they're probably looking, when they look at you and Facebook, they feel more like they know you. And why don't we go to Facebook now? It might be helpful, and then if you could open and share your screen for
Yeah,
Facebook,
yeah,
and
let's
then we
do
can
that.
show you some differences and some other things we might do to show you some of the capabilities that are going to really set you apart when it comes to what you know about someone from Facebook.
Yeah, let's do that. Thank you. Uh, I'm gonna stop your share, and then okay, let's see. I did Kaiser Permanente because they're one of our sponsors at the Cherry Blossom Festival. But I think you had a good one, Ohio Wildlife Center, right? Near you.
Sure.
You were very active in this organization, right, at one time?
For a number of years, yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to that.
No, what's great about this is it gives you an immediate opportunity to take a look at this. But I mean, think about it from the point of view of you going there. Greg, what are you going to take people through when you talk about what they do with nonprofits?
Yeah, I think at least on Facebook, I think the fact is it's another information gathering, right? It tells you kind of like um, the events that they do. That could be very telling because that could be an opportunity where you can meet some people, from that organization, for example. So it might be something that's and if Powell was next to my city, then I would be able to say, oh, maybe on on June 29th, I should head over there and just maybe it would provide a networking session, especially if you don't know somebody. But I think I use this prior to a meeting, to learn more about the organization. Like if I'm going in there for the first time and to be honest with you, I don't know anything about the Ohio Wildlife Center, so this is a perfect example, right? I would definitely go to the about part of the page, just kind of see how they did that. Oh, it's founded in 1984. But a lot of this information, just like Tripp said, this is available in LinkedIn. But there might be some organizations, either other nonprofits who could be your partners, or other organizations that you want to kind of look at that's very similar to yours. It's almost kind of like looking at similar companies to yours. You could learn a lot. They'll have these guys have done a really good job of filling out their about page, right? They even have contact information, a number, a email that you could email them, their website, a brief short version probably of their mission here, and a little bit of an company overview. So this is a great profile because they've filled out everything. Now you're not going to get this all the time, right? So I call this kind of rare in a way on Facebook because they actually have filled out everything, pretty much to the max here. So even calling their services our products, right? So again, it's really fascinating that this organization has really done a good job on their social media, especially Facebook, to learn more about them. But as we going back to the events, I think some of the here's a open house, meaning that you can just go to the Ohio Wildlife Center and learn more about them. That might be another opportunity for you to do some networking and get to know some people there if that's your goal. Um, a lot of times you probably do know people, so a lot of this is just opportunities to catch up with somebody. But again, this is a little bit more social, like you were saying earlier, Tripp. But I believe LinkedIn has a lot more depth of information. But well, let's talk a little bit about Twitter because me and you use that a lot, and we use that maybe as our one of our focuses, right?
Let me talk about this because I think you can see a
Oh
couple
yeah,
other things here.
sure.
If you notice a couple things on here for the person, if you're interested, you can, if you will, you can see that if you're interested, you can tag it, right? Can you
Yeah,
take me to the home page real
yeah,
quick, if you would?
yeah, absolutely.
Um, Okay, look at I want to show you some things that are interesting when it comes to how does social proof play in the nonprofit world. Okay, because when we started this, when I started with them, they had zero. Today we have 17,000 people who like this page.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
a small organization, budget range of approximately $1 million to $1.5 million a year in annual budget, been around for a long time, really took off when social media took off. You can see how many people like this. You can see how many people follow it. It really gives you a lot of information. The other part of this is we're looking at social proof. So you have an ability to, when you sign up for an event on here, your name shows up. So if you have a friend or someone else that you might like to go with, you can send them this and share it with them. So part of this is think community. One of the things I think we really miss with Facebook, and they are the biggest nonprofit website probably out there, and it's specifically because they can provide you a platform like this at no cost. Now, everything you're
Mm,
looking at here was volunteers' time to write, put together, put the events together, but it's all low cost or no cost. So think about it from the point of view of somebody bootstrapping their organization, what it can do for you, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
the other part is, and it's very easy to add illustrations to this. You can add videos to this, and you can even do YouTube. You can do a Facebook live program. All this stuff from one location. So if you have a person who's like older and they don't really have a lot of social media presence, they can come to one location and find out an awful lot about you, right? So this is what we can do as a group. We can build a community through this Facebook page. And
Yeah.
that's what we want to emphasize is this is all automated. So you can literally send out messages to the people who like you when they like the page. You have access to them at 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Right.
So if you need to
Right.
raise money or you have something coming up that you want people involved in or there's not a lot of people scheduled to be there, you can reach out and really do things. The other thing I'd point out to you, if you look on it, is the nonprofit organization, how they classify themselves. That tells you an awful lot about how they see themselves and also how you can learn more about other organizations similar to your own very quickly. It's a great way of doing some reconnaissance on Facebook, one-stop shopping, nonprofit wild sanctuary environmental conservation organization. You could tap on that and it will take you to a whole bunch of organizations with similar missions, visions, and shared things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I think it's really, you know, and that's why I think you and I agree that social is kind of the center of the universe in a way, in terms of, like I said earlier, I don't go to Google search primarily anymore unless I need more information, so something that I couldn't find on their Facebook or LinkedIn profiles. And there's going to be people like that, right? And there's going to be organizations like that. They're either a new organization or there's very little information out there. You might have to do some digging, right? So, okay, great.
and what makes Twitter unique is that it's an always on platform. So you can literally drive events. So if you think of a Twitter chat or some of these kinds of things that happen in real time, you have this ability to do this. And the home part, the heart of Twitter for a nonprofit who's building their list is the ability to search on this, right? So you not only have search Twitter and you can say, I want to look for someone, and it will suggest names for you of people I know. And then you can go through here and do this. And if you have somebody who you're working with to help build out their list, it's very easy. You can see you're at the top of the list. You can see other people that are there, and all of them, it's very easy to find out what's going on. So search function is a critical function here, where you can actually go into, there's an advanced search function as well. As you can see here, I hit the button and it goes search filters. I just hit one button and now it says I can have advanced search. This is where it's really powerful though. Take a look at what happens now. Here's what you have. You can pick words. You can pick exact phrases with Boolean search. You see how and it even shows you how to do it. You can, example, pick animals, because I'm a big animal guy. You can pick animals. You can pick any number of things with hashtags. You have all kinds of ways of finding information about this, and any of these things can be searched. So if I, for example, I go to a search, I do one of my groups does a chat every week. And I can't type it because it's on a shared screen, but you can see at the bottom, hashtag Throwback Thursday, and then hit search, and it gives you everything with that interest. So just think about it from the point of view, if you're doing a particular event, or if there's a natural event that's coming along that you want people to do, you can create a hashtag for it and share it with your community, and then you can search for everybody in the community who responds to it. So what's nice about this is when you go here and you say, okay, let's go in and look at somebody we both know and see what they're doing today. So you can say, so here's Taffy, right? So now we can look at him and say, okay, what do we know about Taffy? He's CEO of the company. He's written a book. Here's what he's interested in, right? Here's what's nice about it. You can see his tweets. So you can see what he thinks is interested. So here are some of different examples of people he shared today, just today in real time. So think about how powerful that is. I mean, then say you want to say, okay, are there tweets and replies? So now you can set this as having conversations, as people sharing things around them. We can look at almost everything. We can do medias. All these things are available to you. So if you're looking somebody up, think how much information you have before you ever talk to them.
Right.
You can see media means that there's a photo or something associated with it. So when you look at this, and then you can say, okay, what's he got likes on? Now you know what people like him about, what he's liking. So you can sit there and say, oh, he likes Felix, he likes Carol. What kinds of articles does he like? What kinds of things does he read? Oh, he has a book. We keep going back to that. But it's interesting because if you think about it from the point of view of a nonprofit, you could do a book signing with Taffy to raise awareness and funding in your area. So, I mean, this is all about how this comes down, and it's all done. The other feature that's very powerful in this that can be used is the feature is called list. And this just basically allows you to put in names. This is my list, not Taffy's. So if everybody wondered, you can see specifically what's going on. Now, once I picked to put a list together, now I'm on 7,000 lists, so I have a lot of lists. Um, but you can go in here, and all these people have similar interest, every one of them, based on the list. And I can send messaging to that list. So if I want to go out and do something and want to know what people are thinking about my nonprofit or something I'm putting on, I can go in there and immediately search for them.
That's cool.
And you can, so I mean, think about it from the point of view of how much information is around you that you can have, and how many people are. And what's nice about it is, even at the very beginning, you can follow people back and you can see what people are interested in. And it also, it says to you, if you get to a certain point and you say, I'm here, what's happening? This is the MuleSoft page, a software company. It tells you what's going on. You can go to their company page. This is what they do. You can tell if they follow you back. So if they're reading your stuff, there's a lot of great stuff here, all based either company or personal. You have a lot of companies and nonprofits that have themselves on Twitter because it's a very popular platform for tech companies because it
Mm.
allows for interaction. You can also use it for customer service as well. And you can do the same thing as a nonprofit too. It's a very low cost channel for you to be able to put out there immediately and build out very quickly. But what do you think? You've used Twitter. What do you like about Twitter?
I think all of the above that you said, I think that in terms of, maybe, if I had a list of people and just trying to learn more about them, I think this is not, like you said, I think this is a great way of learning more about him, like just like we went through with Taffy, he has a book. Um, there's certain probably categories he loves to talk about, like entrepreneurism, other things like that. And that just gives you an idea that, like, when you meet him probably for the first time, you could have a great conversation with him if you did your homework. So I think that's a lot of it. I think that from an organizational standpoint, and maybe we'll do this on a future podcast. I think going into why to use social media platforms for your nonprofit. I think that's probably a future podcast, but I think this is something that is like we said earlier, center. I use social media as a center, and then go outside of it from there. The website, maybe I need to know more. Google search, but this is definitely whatever platform you want to use, LinkedIn or Twitter. I think from the business standpoint, it definitely is LinkedIn for me, and then Twitter next, and then if I want to learn more about organizations, all three of them, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, is something that gives me a chance to see different things. Because like even in LinkedIn, you have the ability to see what articles they're sharing and writing about. So I think that's another feature that LinkedIn gives you as well. Like I said, I call LinkedIn the business Facebook, in a lot of ways, because it's very social like Facebook, but it's heavy duty business, right? So anyway, cool. So now, Taffy, yeah, now that we've kind of did a lot of this research, how would you track a lot of this information that you're learning about
Well,
your
that's where I think
organization?
it's interesting. I think you can do a spreadsheet. A lot of people do spreadsheets. I don't. I tend to do things the opposite. I tend to track people by putting them in the groups and lists electronically because that way I can find them, and because wherever I'm at, they're with me. So if I'm going out to see a donor and talking about what they're doing, I want to be able to pull down other examples in real time. So that's why I make sure everything's on the platform. And to be honest, a lot of the people you have working in newer companies and younger companies, and they're younger people, they're much better at this than I am. So part of this is to really leverage their strengths, which is technology and ability to reach out to people very quickly. But I do think the nice thing about it is you can always sort of the list. You can save the person as an account or as a lead on Twitter and then LinkedIn. Both of them have that capability. You can like things on Facebook if you like them. It says that you've given them authorization to communicate with you, which is kind of nice, going both ways. So all these things are electronic. But if that worst case scenario, I use a 4x6 card, and I have a little box and I drop them in and I put them by date. And then when I'm calling people, I can go in there and get it. So, I mean, I have any number of ways of doing it. But when you get over a certain level of connectivity with people, you want to be able to do it quickly. And there are a lot of tricks we could show on each platform. Each platform could be a show in itself, really. And
Yeah.
how do you use it?
I mean,
Um,
like on LinkedIn, and you could just talk verbally. You don't have to talk. You don't have to share a screen. But you were mentioning off, off, um, off podcast that you use LinkedIn. LinkedIn could be used even the free version to kind of do a lot of this tracking, right?
Well, I'll give you an example. I started a new market this weekend, right? So I wanted to have some companies. So I picked out 100 companies that were in that marketplace and put them in, right? And then now LinkedIn goes to work because I have them in my list. They start adding and they come up every day with new companies that are similar to the ones I've already identified. And this is all done this is not done manually by me. It's LinkedIn artificial intelligence looking at similarities between the companies you chose and then providing you a list of more companies or more people like that. So if you have a profile, an ideal uh, donor profile, you now can add that into the system and you can call it that. And then when you go up to your page every morning at 8 o'clock, when I check my stuff, I'm able to look at whatever information LinkedIn has produced for me overnight while I was sleeping. It's produced leads for me and it's produced names of companies and it's all automated. I don't have to do anything more than once it's in there and now I have the ability to access it,
Yeah,
which makes
yeah.
it
We
kind of
should
unique, right?
probably take another podcast and talk to the viewers a little bit more in depth about that. I think they would really have a kick of you showing some of the process that you go through, and that'd be kind of nice.
Well,
Wow, that's
part of
cool. Yeah.
the other question, what do you see with Facebook? Because obviously Facebook is a place where remember that the idea of social proof. I mean, that's part of what you get this amazing thing going. If you looked at Ohio wildlife as we did, look at from where they came from in the past to now, a lot of it's based on social proof and ability to build communities in real time, right? I mean, how important is that to somebody who wants to have a group of people that it's kind of like your old database used to be?
Yeah, I think, as you stated earlier, Facebook is interesting because a lot of organizations are on Facebook. Uh, I'd say most organizations are on Facebook and they advertise on Facebook. Now, I think it's a little bit trickier than LinkedIn, as we were talking about earlier, is that you'll do a lot of your research about organizations. You won't do people because, quite frankly, there's this privacy thing with Facebook, right? So I agree with you earlier. What you still said is that if you started a Facebook page for your organization, then you could reach out and maybe have some of these people that you're targeting or trying to have relations with to come into your group and join group. Then you could have a direct conversation with them, through Facebook Messenger or through the page itself. So it kind of depends. Now, if you don't have any of that set up, then it's mainly a research tool at that point to find out,
Well,
learn more about people. So more
well,
about
remember you
not
could.
people, but
Well, remember though,
organizations.
you can always invite people. I mean, I think one of the things we're doing that maybe we're giving a perception of what we do. A lot of the people we approach on Facebook or any of these sites are ask them to be friends. It's not like a real serious thing. Let's go steady, but it is an opportunity for you to put yourself into their world, and by watching for a little bit before doing a little social listening before you do the invitation to them, you'd be surprised how many people will say yes. I mean, most people have on Facebook, they might have a couple hundred friends, so they've got up to 5,000. So I mean, the idea is, I would not be shy about inviting people that you want to get to know better, and saying, look, we just have a couple things in common, and because you have that information, you can pick one. Look, I know we both love wildlife, so this is why I thought I'd invite you to this group. Because what you want to be able to do is get them to think about how they can do this for you to help you. I mean, every one of those people that you talk to, if you talk to one person, it's probably worth 50 to 100 people longer term. Because you're
Hmm.
not only, because in Facebook, the other thing we didn't talk about is the fact the timeline, once you're on a person's timeline, shows up on a regular basis on what's going on. So if you
Right.
have shared interests, you have shared friends, you start to see a community forming, and that's all positive, right? I mean, that's what we're looking to do anyway with the nonprofit or the early stage company, is to build a community around us. And that's why I think Facebook's pretty powerful. If you're willing to ask a few people, get out of your comfort zone a little bit, it can be a very powerful way of jump starting your efforts.
Yeah, and I think for me, I would, personally, I go to LinkedIn first ahead of Facebook. You're a lot more bolder than I am, so, but I get the same type of messaging. Like, there's a lot of people who look up my profile in LinkedIn, and they said, "Hey, I'd like to hook up with you because." And it depends on the approach, just like any other social network, right? I tend to um, have a way I like people approaching me. So some people But I'm very upfront with people. Oops, let me turn off my. I'm losing my. Let me turn off my. But I think that's where I kind of try to do things. I'm a little bit maybe more private that way. What I feel is that on Facebook or LinkedIn, it depends on the approach that you have. Me, if I don't know the person on Facebook, it's more of a personal network to me. I'll tend to not. I'll tend to do more research on the person who's actually wanting to friend me before I even accept it. On LinkedIn, I'm a little bit more, but as soon as they come back and say, "Hey, here's the standard pitch, right? Oh, I saw your profile. I'd love to get to know you more," and then they'll pitch me their service, right? And then I'm very honest with them. I said, I'm glad to jump on a call with you, but I'm not looking for any of your services. And I see the sincerity in that at that point. If they're really willing to network with me and kind of view this as a long-term relationship, or they're just a short-term, just doing lead generation and then going to the next person. Yeah, I see both ends of that spectrum.
Well, it's interesting because I do it for a living, right? So part of that is, as you say, I'm probably more outbound than most people are. I mean, I think I've talked to 40 CEOs in the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, obviously, I'm doing a lot of calling and talking to a lot of people. I do think, though, I think that it depends where your comfort level is. And maybe that's another present, something we can talk about is how do you message this? Because there is a right and wrong way of doing it. And I always kid people that because I have a lot of followers and I obviously have my clients' followers that send me invites. And it's interesting because you sit there and you look at it and you know what's coming next. And if that's the case, you've just blown whatever advantage you have of having a real relationship with people. So my messages are pretty straightforward when I say something to people. I say, look, I'm interested in something you might do, or can we do something together? But I think it also comes down to who's your group, one of my friends, Dan Kennedy, talks about having a herd. Some herds, if you're in a marketing or sales group, aggressiveness is okay. But if you're going out trying to raise awareness for the koala bear in Australia, you might want to be a little bit more aware of what's going on. And I think that's the other part. You can't see. Here's what is funny. We have all these tools we've shared for the last 40 minutes or so that you can use, and so few people take advantage of them in a way that will allow for them to represent themselves in a way that's positive on the first impression. They spend all this time getting everything together, knowing how to automate these things and put things out. I know a person who puts out 100 LinkedIn invitations every day, cold, every day, like clockwork. I could never do that. I send out 5, maybe 10. Now that may change at times when I have an event I'm going to be putting on, but part of it is how do we communicate with the group we want to consolidate around us, and how do we want to make sure that there's value for them in everything we communicate. And I think that's where I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for us out there, is to share with people what we feel on a regular basis, like how you like to be approached. Tonight, share how I like to be approached, but also how I've seen that works when you're approaching certain kinds of people,
Right.
because ultimately, for especially for the nonprofit fundraiser who's doing this kind of work, there's a game, and you need to know what the game is a little bit and understand some of the subtlety of the game, because now everybody's out there. I mean, you have 500 million people on LinkedIn. When you had 100 million people, you could be a little, maybe brash. With 500 million people, they just can go to the next person, right? So, and the 2.5 billion, which is what Facebook is at this point, these numbers are huge numbers, huge advantages, but need to be cautious of not being perceived as just another sales guy.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
right. That's what you're talking about. This person comes out and you know that they're going to pitch you, because the moment they accept, the next thing automatic, their autoresponder sequence comes right back to you and says, "Hey, thanks, Joe." And then your name isn't Joe, because they didn't get get their programming right. So I just think the other part of this is maybe that's something we take on at some point, is how do
Yeah,
you
maybe
language
next
it?
week's show, huh?
Yeah, that might,
Well, I think you're very good at that, actually. I mean, I do appreciate, Tripp has a lot of experience in sales and marketing, so I think that we should leverage some of that, and maybe you could talk about, kind of successful ways you've messaged people cold, at times.
well, I think the other part of this is if we do it right, and I think remember, these are supposed to be social platforms. Even LinkedIn is supposed to be a networking platform. I mean, I've had some conversations with Tom Peters, right? On a couple articles he wrote, and it's fantastic when you get to have that connection, especially someone I look up to, Tom. And I think it was so fantastic to have an opportunity to interact with him on a regular basis in real time on Twitter. But the whole idea is, how do we do this? How do we do this as a nonprofit? How do we do this as an early stage company? And I do think messaging is so critical, especially for early stage companies and social entrepreneurs, because there's 100 other choices to go with.
Right. Anyway, my name is Greg Valerie, aka Social Greg on Twitter for It's Not About Me podcast. And Tripp, where can we find you?
Well, before you find me, you have to check it out and make sure you sign up today. We forgot about that at the beginning of the thing, but make sure you sign up down here below. Make sure so you get whatever as it comes out, it's available. The other thing we're starting to do is add different things. We actually have these available in audio only versions, so that if you want to do this while you're working out, we'll be sharing more about how to get to that information and how to do that. But it really comes down to, first of all, sign up here. We need 100 people to get our unique modifier in there. Please, if you have time, you don't have to take an active role, but if you do follow us, we will get that number a lot faster, and it will give us a unique moniker online, so you can always find us. The other thing I'd say is you can find me at Tripp Braden on Twitter, or at trippbraden.com, which is Empowering Serving Leaders. And I respond very quickly, probably less than 24 hours if you have any messages or anything. But also check out some of the stuff we're seeing below. We're starting to add articles behind these videos, so you can literally go in and get a checklist of questions you need to have. We'll probably do something like this on these platforms as well, probably when we actually do each platform by itself. But make sure you come back on a regular basis, and please share us with your friends. We really would like to be able to help people. It looks like there's a lot of needs out there. We're still going through this COVID-19 thing, which we were hoping at this point would be clearing. A lot of nonprofits I'm talking to are struggling. Let's see if we can help share some ideas to get them moving and keep them funded.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And we hope you have a good week. And we'll see you next week on the It's Not About Me podcast. Thank you so much. Be careful out there.